Boring. Boring. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your Instant Match Reaction. Some of your favourite part of the One Leeds Day. Make sure you slap a like on the video. Make sure you're interacting with all the good stuff we just did the watch along. If you want to go back and watch those riveting highlights, please do. So I will never get those 90-plus minutes back. Leeds United, 0. West Bromwich Albion, 0, or vice versa, whatever you want to call it. Let's start off with positives. Clean sheet. Yeah, we've got a clean sheet. That's all good. And we know that's going to be focused on in the press conference. That's great. It's great, clean sheet. And look, we move on with positives. And yes, I'm very happy of the lads. It gets me incredible hard that we're able to move through this. Look, after a challenging week, I may add. We know that's all coming. I can just do the old adage in the press conference for you there. I think my scrutiny with the manager off the bat, I'm gonna go with him straight away. Is Piroe's performance midweek, of which was abysmal. And he starts, once again, I always thought at Leeds United, or as Daniel Farke portrays it, there's a meritocracy. We've heard him say it before. Meritocracy. There is no meritocracy. It just feels like he sticks with what he knows, really. And that just shows, for me, a little bit of a limited manager and risk averse. And we saw that last season when it came to formation change and tactical changes. And just seeing him here, like, kick the bench seat and stuff like that. I don't know what he's doing that for. He's the one making the changes and stuff like that and putting certain personnel on the pitch. But we'll focus on him. Obviously, we saw Leeds turn up into a 4-2-3-1. Would it have been better as going into a 3-4-3 for this game, or even a 4-3-3 with the fact that we've now got no real width or quality with width? I personally thought Leeds from the off were quite lethargic, and you almost looked at it and said that the whole onus of this game, and I think Hinchcliffe and his mate Daniel Mann sort of reiterated this, that it feels like Leeds were trying to stop West Brom instead of imprinting our game onto them, which I just think is the wrong way of going about it. If you're a promotion winning team, you see promotion winning teams of Bielsa, of other years gone by, even when you're just looking at, Enzo Maresca, for goodness sake, one of the poorest coaches you've had at this level, and other managers, you imprint your philosophy on other teams and they have to deal with you. It didn't feel like we did that once. I think the more worrying thing for me was the lack of open play, impetus and onus. We looked flat. We looked like we had a lack of ideas. No creativity, innovation, guile in the final third. And it was once again extremely indicative of what we've all spoke about leading up to this game this week, that Georgie's been taken out. That threat has been completely taken out of our team in terms of us getting up the pitch, him dropping deep, bringing Leeds up that field, winning free kicks, playing lovely balls in, beating 2 or 3 men. And West Brom's job became a million times easier with him being omitted from this Leeds side and moving on to Brighton. And we saw, once again, the manager select Joel Piroe. Don't know why after the midweek performance, but he selects him again. And you think if you're an individual in Joel Piroe, you take this opportunity. It's your first time in that number 10 position. There's him, maybe Brendan Aronson, potentially Joe Gelhardt, all vying for that position. You really battle for it. You really show that you want it. And he just looked, as Joel Piroe has done his entire time at Leeds United. You'll get people throwing stats and goals, assists, comprised in that. And him doing well in his first season. And he might stat pad against some of the weaker sides in this division, but I just think he's completely, from what I've seen at Leeds, really average. A technically able footballer. We saw that at Swansea. We've seen that at moments at Leeds, albeit, it's very, very small moments. But he doesn't seem to be able to have that speed of thought at all. His ability in the tight pockets is completely restricted by his pace on the half turn. His ability with his right foot is average. His ball striking with his left foot, as we saw in the second half a couple of times, seems to have reverted from what it was at Swansea, which was an accurate sharpshooter, a bit of a sniper on the edge of the area. We've not seen that at Leeds. I think we saw it once against Plymouth on the edge of the area last season, of which you're thinking, bloody hell, he's got a real range on him. Doesn't ever show that at Leeds. And there were moments in that first half where Leeds had found him in that half space, and he just wasn't able to capitalise whatsoever. So I was calling pre-match potentially for seeing either Nonto in that 10, so he could make a few low center of gravity movements, getting the ball on his back foot and moving forward in a direct way and having that change of pace of which Nonto has. We've seen him in the 10 before. He's good in that number 10. But Farker elected to keep him out on the wing, which was fine. But then you saw for 35 minutes, absolutely no impact from Willian Nonto. And then for the 10 minutes leading up to the halftime whistle, you saw Willian Nonto really come into it because he decided to think, Joe, screw this. I'm just going to get the ball in the number 10. And Joel Piroe sort of just drifted out the game for the last 10 minutes. And you saw Willian Nonto being direct with the ball, pushing up the field and actually getting Leeds into good positions. So overall, we saw just a lackluster performance throughout. The manager also decided to keep Joe Rothwell on the bench. Now, I'm not saying Joe Rothwell came in and made the world, a brighter place when he came on from a Leeds perspective. But I thought, once again, it's the speed of thought. It's the movement on the ball, and the commentators picked it out as well. My little brother was sat there and he said there seems to be a little bit more going forward now. Rothwell wants the ball in pockets, of which Gruev won't do. Ampadu doesn't really want it in pockets either. He'll more get the ball in sort of a sweeper role and try and move it left or right. Rothwell will be everywhere in that midfield and actually look to play the ball forward direct. And his speed for a midfield is quite impressive. So his speed of thought, I thought, in this game would have been, if you're either looking at the number 10 position or if you're looking at a deep lying role, you've got Ampadu doing everything what Gruev does. So what's the point in having Gruev in there? You've got the balance already in Ampadu, and then you've got a forward thinker in Rothwell. But he doesn't do that because it's out of the norm for him. So I'm hoping we're not going to get to another season with Daniel Farker, of which we'll see a Spence scenario, although there's context there, Connor Roberts and Jaden Anthony, of which, where just lone players don't seem to feature, and I understand he's come on there, but as a football manager, I don't understand how with us right now where we have, this is what I'd be thinking if I was Daniel Farker, if you've got no guile, innovation, creativity through that midfield and no speed of thought, because now Jorginho Rutter's gone, who is your entire crux of this Leeds United side. Why don't you put Rothwell in there, who's a fast thinker, a really good decision maker, has a high level of football IQ and moves that ball quickly, and he goes forward and he's very direct. Why don't you do that to replace some of what you've lost in Jorginho Rutter and to help Piroe out, because Piroe's got none of those assets to his game. Doesn't do that, sticks with the lethargic midfield again, who deploy when they're pressed sideways and backward style. So, okay, Daniel, let's go with that. So that's why I'm looking at the manager. Now, if we're looking outside, and looking at the noise, was this Leeds United team good enough to beat West Brom? Yeah, it was. It is good enough. Now, do I think we need things doing in the background? 100%. But is it good enough? Of course it's good enough. I mean, this West Brom side isn't all stars. They've got Malumbi in there. They've got Tom Fellows. They've got Shemir J, they've got Carl Bartley, Darnell Furlong. It's a good side. It's probably going to be in around the top 8. But are we really looking at this division? If West Brom are going to be top 5, top 4 potentially of this division, and thinking this is a top division this season, of which Leeds can't do anything with this side? No, we're not thinking that, because this team right now even is good enough to go up against the West Bromwich Albion side. I firmly believe maybe if you'd have moved Nonto in that middle, or you'd had Rothwell in there from the start, or Rothwell in that deep line role to feed Nonto, you'd have seen something. Daniel Farker likes vertical build-up. So if you like vertical build-up, put Rothwell in the defensive pivot role, and then there'll be a balance between Rothwell and Ampadu. You don't need two similar players in Ampadu and Gruev, who are both going to try occupy being a sweeper, and then just have a little bit of balance with the forward player, and then try build up in that central space through Nonto. Because if we've been brutally honest, I saw this online. I thought it was hilarious from Ethan online. Piroe looks like he's playing in jeans. And Dan James, as we've always said on this channel, and we'll lose subscribers, it is what it is. Some people have the favourites. I don't. I base it on what you see on the pitch. Dan James might have done what he did last season. That was great. Was probably the best season he's had in his career. But he's a brain-dead footballer. He's a brain-dead footballer who, might get goals, might get this, that, and the other, but you lose so much up here when you've not got an intelligent footballer wide right who doesn't just get the ball, have his head down and pings the ball into the box and see what comes off. One good cross out of 6. It's a player who, in Dan James, who offers energy, he's endeavour, and I think that's why he adheres himself to the fan base. Of course he is. But right now, as a technical footballer, there is one man who is now the guy. It's Nonto. One guy who is the guy for that entire forward line now, because Joseph needs help. He's not going to be able to track back and do what those 3 in behind him are doing. He's got to be that forward thinking player so that he stretches the West Bromwich Albion defence and other defences. Dan James is not that player. Brendan Harrison is not that player. Why? Because they don't have brains. They don't have footballing brains. They'll get assists. They'll get goals invariably this season, 100%. It'll be getting on the end of things. It'll be when they're in and behind. It's not going to be them cultivating some moments of magic in front of the defence, in and behind that midfield. and defensive line, it will not happen. They don't have the football IQ to slide players in like you had with Jorginho Rutter or your Somervilles or what Nonto can do centrally. So what you're going to have to do is put Nonto into that central space, because he's going to have to start cultivating everything. You're going to have to get an on loan Joe Rothwell to be playing a little bit further forward, I guess. That's what we're going to have to do. We can't have him in the double pivot. We've got to have him a little bit further forward so he can conjure something, an on loan Joe Rothwell. We're going to have some innovation in that final third, not just energy and passion and pressing. There's got to be more than that. There's now got to be technicality. There's now got to be players who can cultivate chances and moments and X factor. And the only X factor in that front line is Willy Nonto, getting the ball and wrapping it with his left foot, or getting the ball and wrapping it with his right foot. Did he have the best game today? Absolutely not. He didn't have the best game today. But you can just see, in terms of shielding the ball, Piroe can't do it. Dan James can't do it. In terms of controlling the ball under high-pressure situations, Dan James can't do it. Piroe can't do it. Getting the ball forward when you're pressed, beating a man, which isn't just you booting the ball and running after it. Dan James can't do that. There's no inversion with his running. There's no step overs. There's no movement of which you look at and you think that's brilliant. That's a moment of class that with Dan James. It's just rely on pace completely. But when you can't have that foresight, what's the point in having pace? And I understand what the comment's going to be. It's going to be the same sort of thing over and over again. Look at what he did last season. He's miles better than Nonto, because the fans prefer James to Nonto, which is fine. Take Nonto out of this team and let's see if Dan James can carry that attack. Absolutely not. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's not good enough. He's simply not good enough. Whereas Nonto is that man who can make that step up. But he didn't have a good game today. None of them had a good game today, in my opinion, apart from Pascal Struijk. The worrying thing as well overall for me is I'm looking at it and I'm looking at Pascal and I'm thinking, so that's your threat now then. So the threat now is set pieces. So if you can't, there was no way of us breaking through because there's no one centrally. Farke loves that vertical build-up. So there's no one centrally to get the ball and drag Leeds forward like Rutter used to do. There's no one to do that now unless we make a signing. You know, Rothwell isn't that type of player. Even Nonto's not that type of player to come as far deep and use his physicality, his athleticism, his size, and ultimately his ball control to move Leeds up the pitch, ride tackles and get Leeds up the pitch and thread an unbelievable pass through. So we don't have that now, which was the X factor. Somerville was also the X factor. We don't have that either. So you've lost a massive, massive technical advantage you had in that final third. And people might not like that, but that is just facts. And that's not even up for discussion. It's really not. And it's massively frustrating seeing this Leeds now revert to a Leeds of old, in my opinion, which is Leeds just not relying on any technical level. It is just us. And it's only one game, of course it is, but now it's kind of 3 games really where we've seen this, where there's problems, big problems, in my opinion. And yeah, we've got out of there with a point. The football purists will look at that and say, look, it's a point on the ball, but we know there are bigger problems here. We know there are much bigger problems here. And a lot of people might also say that it's not on Daniel Farke. Fair enough. Let's look at the 49ers. What do they need to do? Well, I mean, we've painted a pretty picture here. That's what you need to do. Seen it on the pitch. You need more ballers in that final third. There's an argument you need of the centre-back, because if Pascal Struijk gets injured, we are at shit creek without a paddle. And we mentioned Verba in pre-season. If Verba's struggling against West Brom, against Middlesbrough from a defensive capacity and struggling with speed when it comes to that Middlesbrough second team, I have to say I'm a little bit worried. I didn't expect to be worried about that. You know, he's had a good season last year. He's in the Bundesliga, one of Gladbach's best players. They wanted him back this season. They were willing to go 10 million for him. I didn't expect him to suffer in that game as much as he did, but he's passing out from the back's really nice. But physicality, athleticism, dealing with pace, he was massively struggling. He was turning around. His head was in a spin. So now are you confident if we don't have a replacement centre-back? I'm not. Yeah, I've never got confident with the keeper, obviously. Our replacement fullback is a man who's constantly injured in Sam Byron and who isn't good enough. The midfield, okay, yeah, we can deal with that, but we have lost mass technicalities, mass X factor out of that front line. And I might be saying some things here that you guys don't enjoy because there are certain favourites of this football club. But when we are looking at it at a level, when it comes to someone like Joel Piroe, who I don't think is a favourite, but I look at Dan James. If Nonto's sold, I want all of you to come back who think James is better than Nonto, and let's see how we suffice with Dan James as the main man going forward. Let's see, because that ain't going to happen. That technical ability is not there, unfortunately. So the 49ers need to look at that and think, by God, we need 2, 3. And what if Joseph gets injured? Is the guy that came on in the 77th minute, is he the option? Is he the choice? Let's get into some of your comments. Josh, become a member. Dan is. Jake's here as well. Absolutely toothless, mate. Thank God for Pascal. Yeah, considering what's happening right now, I'll take that point all day long. We need to take it a game at a time and hope the board bring players in ASAP. If not, we'll hammer them. It won't be hammering, mate. The thing is, and this is my major worry now. If we don't bring anyone in, let's say we don't make massive strides in this transfer window, Farke's got almost a rule book of just losing football games now. Or drawing football games now, or getting the incremental value out of a football game because all of this has happened again. He consistently mentioned it last season when it came to the players going out. That was the whole blame factor last season. Of course, it was not having enough experience, blah, blah, blah. I get that. But are we really looking at this starting 11 and still the rotations that he can make? I'm not saying it's it's not a star-studded squad, which of what we had, of course it's not. But is it good enough for top six? Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And if you don't think it's good enough for top six, you're overvaluing this division. The division's crap. It is crap. Look at them. They're being touted that first game of the season where they battered QPR. They're being touted with the greatest respects of being in like top 4, top 5. They're not any good. They're not a good team. Their whole blueprint today was to turn Leeds around with the hoofball. That's what it was. That's what it was. I'm not saying Leeds were any better than that, but could we have been better than that with a little bit more from the manager? I'm not having this excuse book written for him. I'm not. No one even focused on the Borough match the other day. Nobody. Because his whole press conference was structured around Jorginho Rutter and the impact that had on the team. Well, the first half we played all right. So what happened then? Second half, they all just suddenly Jorginho Rutter leaving got to them and they were absolutely battered in the second half. No. And like I've said at the start, Joe Rothwell not starting, Piroe starting, Graves starting. It's all up for debate. But at the start, everyone on my chat who's doing the watch along was saying, well, what about Rothwell? Why has Rothwell been omitted after having the best game and giving himself a chance after the Borough game because he was the only good player? But he stood up above everybody else. If this team's a meritocracy, why is he not playing? That's a managerial decision. It's a managerial decision for us to come to West Bromwich Albion today looking for the point and not to put our game on the opposition. Yeah, it's an improvement from last season, but could it have been 3 points? Yeah. Of course it could. Are we going to go to Sheffield Wednesday next? Are we going to go to Hull at home? Are we going to try win the game, or are we going to try get a point? Sheffield Wednesday, we're going to try get a point. I want us to raise the standards here a little bit, and that comes top down. So the owners have got to do that because right now what they're doing in terms of proactiveness, from what we understand, is utterly embarrassing. But there's still a decent team out there. There's still a lot of money spent on that side. Still. That's not giving the 49ers an excuse, but it's not also giving Daniel Farke an excuse to play like we have in the first 3 for me. British Gamer says, but that team is crap, Connor. Everyone can see that. We attack and lose our shape in defence, but that's not a good team, Connor. So we attack and lose our shape. So who does the shape? Who structures the attack? Who picks the players? Could we have a better attack? Could there be different dimensions? Tell me what style we play. I'm not solely blaming him, by the way, but tell me what style we play. Why do we play a high line, which West Brom we're trying to turn around? Why do we play a high line, but then not press high? Why do we do that? Because if you play a high line, the whole unit should be further up. If you play a high line, you could see West Bromwich Albion were uncomfortable with the ball at the back in the 3 or 4 times that we did press. So why don't we press like that more often? Why are we not brave? Why are we not brave when anytime Palmer was on the ball, the goalkeeper, he was spinning it out when he was pressed by Dan James or Joseph or Nonto. Anytime Shemi Ajayi had the ball at the back or Kyle Bartley, they'd spin it out for a throw when they were pressed. So why do we do that? We'll not do that more often. Why was there not instruction there? Why did we come out after the Middlesbrough game at half-time when it was 50-50 and get absolutely annihilated in the second half? Is that not instruction, or at least, motivation from the changing room coming out in the second half? I'm not solely blaming him, everybody, but I feel like there's only a certain amount of people now who are at least looking at the manager. Now, the 49ers 100% need to do what they need to do, 100%. And it's all on them because it's top down, it's the trickle-down effect. But I ain't letting him get away with poor performance after poor performance, especially if that continues. I'm not, because I don't even know what we play anymore. I don't know what we play. Are we a counter-attacking team? Are we a possession-based team? What are we? Do we play in the half spaces? I don't understand how this team plays. I can tell you at least how Corberan plays. I'm not saying it's effective. And you can tell they weren't that great, but I can tell you what they play. But yeah. As amazing of a sign as Clark would be, he doesn't fix that. But do you know what he does, Aidan? He gives you a runner. He gives you quality, and he's a ball carrier. He's a ball carrier. There's no ball carriers with quality in that team apart from Nonto now. Your ball carrier was unbelievable. In Somerville, it was literally top-notch, world-class in Rutter. Ball carriers, getting you up the pitch, attracting players as well, like flies to you-know-what. But as we know, as of right now, we don't have that ball carrier. Even in Johnny Rowe, ball carrier, an effective ball carrier. Jack Clark, an effective ball carrier who's going to hurt the opposition. He's going to commit fouls. Jack Clark's not far off Somerville. Not popular, but he's not far off Somerville. And there's a conversation about Jack Clark being better than Somerville and vice versa. There is a conversation there to be had. And he's the closest thing to him. And he'll get you goals, Johnny Rowe, carrier. But it's not just the front line, everybody. I think the technicality of that front line's poor, really bad. And we're now working on effort, endeavour, passion. When you're looking at Aronson, when you're looking at James, I'd even say to Piroe, I'd even say that because I'm not even sure the technicality is there anymore. But then it's a very different type of effort, isn't it? It feels like it's almost like a lethargic effort, but I'm not saying there's no effort from him there. But the level has just gone down so much. The X factor's gone. And if they don't bring anybody in, and this is where I will say to Daniel Farke, and I will give him a bit of credit, that is a lot to replace. And he's gone through a lot this week in terms of that side. I'm just saying, I think the side that he's got and the side even that he had last season, he could have got more out of. That's what I genuinely believe. Jack says, give us a lineup that you would play. So I'd probably go Melee and net, mate, because we don't have any options. Bogle right. Obviously, the back two of Rodon and Strauch. Furpo. And look, we can't. No, that can change, can it? Because we've got no depth. And Byram's not going in there, is he? I think it's interesting because of the vertical build-up. I think I'd probably put Rothwell in there next to Ampadu, and there's a better balance there between Ampadu. You've got someone who wins the ball there. You've got someone who comes in as a sweeper between the centre-backs. You don't need two people doing that. You've got someone who's going to laterally play the ball backwards as well and play the ball forward, try split the other opposition centre-back. I think Ampadu does that well. Gruev, I don't think you need in there. I don't understand why he's in there. And for me, Daniel Farke, when he's putting Gruev there with Ampadu, is more worried about the opposition breaking through our lines. That's why he's put another defensive body in there, but there's no balance between them both. And if you notice, actually, they're getting each other's way quite a bit. So I'd put Rothwell in there. And then you've got that vertical build-up, that speed of play, that football IQ. I'm actually looking right now, and I'm wondering if you put Nonto in the 10, because there's just nothing there. There is nothing there. And then you're going to have to put Aronson wide left, I should say. You're going to have to put Dan James wide right. And then Joseph up top. I think right now that's probably our strongest lineup. And yeah, that is how we're probably going to have to play. You put Nonto out there, great, of course, on the left-hand side. He looked fantastic in pre-season. But yeah, I guess that's the variation you can make. Maybe Aronson comes out for Piroe again. But Piroe, if it's football's one based on a meritocracy, I don't understand how he's playing. To be honest. Yeah, it does feel bleak, doesn't it? It does feel bleak. Glenn says, Rutter isn't world-class. Have a word with yourself. Wait and see how he does at Brighton. It's a bit of tongue-in-cheek, Glenn. Well, he's not world-class, is he? But there's an argument that he's world-class at ball carrying, mate, which is what I said. I didn't say Rutter was world-class. I said Rutter's probably world-class at ball carrying. I think we'll see that in the Premier League as well. There's a difference between actually calling him that. Connor, how do you think Rodon performance? Pretty poor, mate, if I'm honest with you. I don't think he's really recovered. Anyone who thinks that was a good point is deluded. Should have annihilated them today. I thought Rutter could have done with helps of taking him out initially, turns the formation to a circle, wouldn't have anything in the centre. Look, it's better on last season, obviously. It's better on last season in terms of getting there. getting the point, but there's more context, isn't there? I feel there's more context. And look, everyone, I'm sorry if this is maybe a little bit negative. I said at the start, it is a point from what we got last season. I'm miffed with it at the minute. I think we all are. I think we're all a bit miffed. And for 40 minutes of that game, for 80 minutes of that game, I'm sat here yawning. I'm bored. There's no fun in that game. We're not trying anything. The best thing that we've got is a set piece. Strout was our biggest goal threat today, which just shows how problematic that is centrally. And there's a lot more context, in my opinion, to just comparing this game and last season and this one today, because like I'd have still felt last season, yeah, but we're going to go into the next game and win. I genuinely look at that whole game now and I just don't know. I just don't know. So he can come out and say, well, it's a point gained, but I'm very much like, if it stays the same now, I'm just like, well, I've got no real confidence in us beating Hull, to be honest. And then Sheffield Wednesday, it's just, that's how it feels right now. And this is why we need to see action from the 49ers, but I also need to see maybe a little bit of change from the manager as well. Ben says Rodon was fine today. I think questions on his passing, but yeah, overall he was okay. But yeah, guys, I'm going to leave it there. We will, I'm sure, revisit this for the remainder of today. Make sure you slap a like on the video as well, and we'll have to wait and see what happens, everyone, won't we? We'll have to wait and see what happens. But it's been a real pleasure, you guys coming around today. Thanks for the watch long numbers as well. We'll be back later on with something else. West Brom 0, Leeds 0. Another sort of dissatisfying performance, but we move. Come on, Niners, do what you need to do.